Well, hello and welcome. Hope you're all doing well. Here's the Friday update, and yeah, let's get straight into it. With regards to, I suppose, the market in general, let's have a look at what's happening with Bitcoin as we normally do, and have a look what's happening elsewhere. Obviously, I suppose the big news this week was that the US have reduced their interest rates by 0.5%, first reduction in interest rate in 4 years. And it's interesting to see the reaction or possibly not big reaction to that news. So here is with the Bitcoin chart. Each one of these is 1 hour. Each candle is 1 hour. So this is sort of zoomed in. You can see in that chart, it's been growing steadily. We have higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. As you can see all the way through. So higher low, higher high, higher low, and higher high up to here. So it'll be interesting now to see, will this pull back or will it move on from here? Um, this blue support line has been support all the way up. Again, this is a line that was drawn from here and then all the way up extended. You can see the market, it just about came down to that line, bounced off it again. Here it was right on that line, bounced in an attempt to recover, broke through, but again recovered, which is a positive sign, got back above and has pretty much maintained above that line. Then just after the reduction in interest rates came in, we saw this pump. I mean, it's positive, of course, but bearing in mind that this is the first reduction in interest rates for 4 years, and based on the fact that it was reduced by 0.5% and not the originally expected 0.25%, I think the notion of the 0.5% only came in about a day or two before it. Then you would have expected, or at least I would have expected, that in the short term we'd have seen a very significant pump in the price. It did move for sure. Going from maybe anywhere from say 59 to 60, all the way up as high as 64. Currently, at what, just over 62 and a half. So it's retraced as you would expect after a bit of a pump like that. The question is, will it hold here now? You can see it was a line of resistance right here, a line of support here. It's showing a line of support here again. But will it pull back? And if it pull back, will it? This red line is a longer term line of support. I'll show it to you in a second. But will it pull back? Can it come back to the sort of 60K mark here, or will it break down further? Well, there's an awful lot of positives to see in Bitcoin in general. I mean, that's a positive upward trajectory at the moment. If we pull out a little bit further and look at the 4 hour, so now every candle is a 4 hour. That's us after pulling back out from this a little bit. And again, you can see there's this trend line that we were between these two red lines. It hit off at a couple of times in the top, a few times in the bottom. In fact, 3 times. It held, and then it broke through. Tried to get back up, and as soon as it couldn't, it fell right back down to this line. Now it's on that upward trajectory. But from this point of view, if you look at the 4 hour, we've got a high, a low, a lower high, a higher low, which would suggest it's coming into a triangular situation, which means it has to break one way or the other. You can see here the fact that this didn't make another higher high here. This is the high, this is a lower high. Then that would suggest there's the potential for this to have a significant retracement. If it were to come below this low here, I think we see a massive retraction. Is that likely to happen? Who knows? But again, let's go back out now. Each one of these is a day. And if we just stretch it out, again, this overall trend here is generally trending down. All the highs are lower than the previous high, and the lows are all lower pretty much than the previous lows. So this one here would suggest, it's at that now would come in as a higher low, which is a positive, but you would need the next high to be a higher high. So, and maybe that still makes it. It's got, the next couple of days that it could top this. And if that gets above that, then that would certainly suggest it's going to make another attempt at going higher. Just to be clear, I'm not a chartist. This is my own musings, and just my own take on what's happening. What does all that mean? Of course, there's nothing clear. But if we're to look at what's happening in crypto and in Bitcoin in particular, then I think it gives us some interesting insight. And again, as I've often said, with regards to Bitcoin itself, the overall structure of it and the big version of what's happening with Bitcoin in particular and crypto will follow is positive. Most of the news on crypto itself is positive. It's what's going on around it that creates the doubt. So, for example, if you look at this is the number of addresses with a non-zero balance. So, in other words, these are the number of addresses that have at least some Bitcoin in them. And you can see here, this is in a very positive upward direction year on year on year. And, it's at an all-time high right now. So, that's very positive. Obviously, the more people that have Bitcoin and have some or a Bitcoin wallet with some Bitcoin in it, just obviously means more and more and more people are buying into the idea that Bitcoin is a positive. The more people that have it, the less people that are selling. The obviously creates that less supply, more demand, is a very positive thing for Bitcoin. Also, we see here by this chart, the orange line or yellow line is the price of Bitcoin. So you can see it's general upwards and it's the sideways motion there for the last number of months. But if you notice, the green is the balance of Bitcoin on exchanges. And generally, if you see less and less and less Bitcoin on exchanges, usually people move Bitcoin into an exchange if they're looking to sell it. Well, there's less and less and less Bitcoin on exchanges, which would suggest there's going to be less and less sell pressure over the coming months. Again, a very positive thing for Bitcoin. On top of that, you can see this is the miners chart. So this shows you when miners are either buying or selling. Obviously, red is when they're selling, green is when they're buying. You can see from probably October, November last year, it's been selling and quite heavy sell pressure and some of the heaviest sell pressure that we've seen from miners over many years. But and why do they do that? Well, they sell it when they need the money to keep the business going. So their whole business is mining Bitcoin. So obviously, to pay the bills, they have to sell some Bitcoin, and they do that when obviously they need to keep the business going. They've been doing that now for many many months. But as you can see, in the last couple of months, they're starting to hold their Bitcoin again. So that would suggest number one, they're becoming profitable, and number two, they're starting to hold the Bitcoin, which is a reduction in selling pressure. So we see two different areas here where there's a reduction, a major reduction in sell pressure. The other thing is September in general in the S&P is negative. Usually it's averaging 0.7% down. Currently, they're actually up since they reduced the interest rates. And in fact, it was down in the first week of September significantly, but now it's significantly up. And so, September is generally a downward month for it and for Bitcoin. But we can see very positive move here in the overall, the S&P. And here's Bitcoin's version. Bitcoin traditionally does about minus 4.5% in September, usually the worst month of the year. We can see that number one, right now it's positive. So we're 20 days in. It's came into the month at 59,000. It's currently, like I said a while ago, around whatever it is, 62 and a half, 63,000. So it's obviously in a positive position right now. Will it hold that till the end of the month and put in a positive month in September? We'll see. But what we definitely see is October, November tend to be some of the the biggest months of the year. November tends to be the biggest, and October the third biggest behind April. So again, that would suggest there's positive times to come if you're to work by that. The other thing is this dot plot. So what is a dot plot? The dot plot is where members of the Fed sort of predict how many, what they're going to do with interest rates, whether it's going to go up or down, and when that might happen over what time frame. Well, what's come in from that dot plot now is it implies that there's going to be two more 25 basis cuts between here and then the year, of course, one big one. So the next one is not till November. There's none in October. So they may go for another 0.5 in November, or they might do 0.25 November, 0.25 December. But that's currently the expectation at this moment. So that would be a whole 1% over the space of a few months. I'm going to come back to that and what that might mean in a while. But what it has done is you can see the stock markets here early in the year. We saw, or early in the year, earlier in the month, you can see here around the 6th, all were at a low and well below, 1.5 to 2.5% below. Whereas right now, the S&P is 3.3% up, NASDAQ over 5%. So you can see that they're in a positive state right now. And again, normally they're in a negative position from here. So what's likely to happen from here? So before going to this chart, I guess the overall concept here is, where does Bitcoin go from here and when does it happen? So most people are basically asking the question, when does the bull run start? And of course, there's loads of things you can look at out there that could suggest one way or the other. And again, if you look at Bitcoin, what tends to happen in Bitcoin, again, everything is positive, or the vast majority of things are positive. We have a president, or president-elect, or sorry, a candidate for the president in Donald Trump, who has just launched his own project in the last couple of days, his own crypto project. He, of course, has been accepting crypto for a couple of years now. He had his own NFT projects. So he's very much has been involved, and now just in the last couple of days has actually made his first transaction using his phone to pay for burgers using Bitcoin. So again, first nominee to have actually used Bitcoin to make a payment. So again, loads and loads of positive news out there about Bitcoin, crypto in general, the number of people, companies, institutions, banks, governments that are looking positively now on crypto, and what it can do and its opportunities. There's big companies looking into real world assets, into DePIN, into DVIN, just so much, DeFi, of course, sort of real world projects based in crypto. So it's you would say, the vast majority is positive. Well, so is this. If you look at this is a chart that macroeconomics guy, Raoul Paul, who is well worth listening to. This is one of the charts he's pulled up. And in it, what is it? So the red line is Bitcoin and price, and the black line is the global money supply. Global into money supply was a certain subset of the money supply. And what he's done is he's overlaid one over the other, except the black one is 10 weeks ahead. And so what it shows, you can see there's a really strong correlation between what the global money supply does and what Bitcoin does 10 weeks later. And so you can see the price of Bitcoin here is, that's the September. The black line up here, that's showing where it has gone and is now in September, but they've overlaid it and pushed 10 weeks ahead. What does that mean? Well, obviously, if you were to follow this chart, you would see that when the black line goes up, the red line tends to follow. And so, in other words, when money supply grows in the global economy, then so does the price of Bitcoin, which would make a lot of sense. If there's more money out there, more money will come into risk on assets like Bitcoin and others. But what you can see is both have gone pretty much sideways and pretty much in tandem for the last number of months, or right throughout this chart since the end of last year. And now this money supply has gone up significantly. And if Bitcoin is to continue its correlation, it would suggest it is also going to start to climb quickly. And if that were the case, the predicted number for the end of the year would be 90 to 100 grand for Bitcoin. If that happens, I think a lot of people would be very happy with the crypto space. And obviously, I think there would be much more to come into next year. Is that likely to happen straight away? Let's see. More to comment on that in a second. This is a similar chart, but it's the total liquidity. So the total liquidity, again, with a 10-week lead versus Bitcoin. And again, you can see when this total liquidity increases, Bitcoin tends to follow. It tends to follow a number of weeks later, but it does tend to follow. And again, you can see it right the way across. Right now, you can see that would also indicate that Bitcoin will go north of 90K before the end of the year. And in fact, this chart is a few days old. It has since followed the black line up further here into the sort of 62 R3 zone, has actually started coming back a little bit. Maybe it makes its way back down to 60, but if to follow this line, it would go straight on from there. So again, all things would suggest that Bitcoin is ready to rock and roll. And again, if you look at history, it shows that after the election, and I'm emphasizing after the election, we see that Bitcoin tends to pump. It happened in 1617, it happened in 2021. Will it happen again in 2024? But bear in mind, the election is not for what, 6 weeks from now? So while a lot of the indicators would suggest we're ready to go right now, or in the next days or a week or so, if you were to look at this chart, you would suggest that it's more likely to come after the elections, which, like I said, are 6 weeks' time. I personally believe that's a more likely outcome than us taking off right now. But that's not financial advice. It could take off while I'm talking. It could take off tomorrow. It could take off next week. It could take off when I'm suggesting here in 6 weeks' time, or it could take off. It might not take off till next year. No one knows. We're just looking at this to see what are the potentials and what are the possible outcomes. So I guess a lot of this comes back to one thing for me. So the US have stated that the economy is strong, that their jobs are strong, though, excuse me, but that the jobs are strong, that, there's been a very slight weakness shown in it, but nothing to be concerned about, that their stock market is strong, that inflation is coming back down to their 2% level. So realistically, you could say we're coming in for our soft landing. Brilliant. But the one thing I would say is normally when they start reducing interest rates, they start reducing interest rates by 2.25%. And up till a couple of days ago or a couple of days before they did it, everyone was talking about 0.25%. And it was literally only the day or two before 0.5 became a suggested number. Why did they reduce by 0.5? If they believe the economy is strong and the interest rates are coming to where they want it, why reduce at all? But certainly, why reduce by 0.5%? To me, that suggests that they have information that is not yet being shared. And that information would be that the job market is much weaker than they're letting us know, that various elements of the economy are much weaker than they're letting us know, and potentially we're already in a recession or heading that direction. And they are then trying to stave that off by hitting a big 0.5% right off the bat. Of course, no one knows that for sure, but it's certainly an outcome that we have to keep in mind. And here's one more table that I think is very much worth looking at. If you look at this, let me just squeeze it in a bit. If you look at this, here are all the times in the last 40 years that the Fed have reduced interest rates, going back from 84 all the way up to 2019. In all of these ones here, 84, 87, 89, 95, 98, in every one of those, their first rate cut was 0.25%. And indeed, in 19. Every single one of those, the first reduction was 0.25%. And you can see in every one of those, the stock market was positive the following 12 months. Anything from, you can see 6.5%, 8.6%, all the way up to 22%. So it's had a very positive outcome. And again, if you look the following year, even more positive, 40%, 20, 72, very positive outcomes. The exceptions are 2001 and 2007. What happened both those times? Significant recession. How much was their first interest rate reduction in both those times? 0.5%. So the only other two times in history they've reduced by 0.5% on their first interest rate reduction. In both of those occasions, we had a significant recession. The stock market pulled back significantly in both for the next 2 years. This is the third time. Will we see the same again? Of course, we don't know, but it's worth noting. And so I guess what I'm saying in all of this is we all want a bull run. I believe there will be a bull run. The real question in all of this, of course, always comes back to when will the timing of it be? And for me, unless your strategy is buying Bitcoin and that's your main go-to crypto that you want to buy, or Ethereum, or let's say any of the top 10, then you would want to get ahead of that. You'd want to get in if you believe that, it's going to start next week or tomorrow or very soon. You'd want to be buying Bitcoin now because with that belief, it's upwards from here, and there's lots to suggest that it is upwards from here. However, if your interest is buying, coins under the top 100, coins that are under 500 million market cap, under 100 million market cap or lower, then they tend to move. Of course, if Bitcoin goes from where it is right now to 70,000 and looks like it's going to challenge the all-time high, of course the other cryptocurrencies are going to go up with it. The vast majority, of course, and particularly good projects. But they're going to go up by a much smaller percent compared to what they potentially will go to if Bitcoin then moves on to 90, 100 grand and beyond. And so my point is, we can wait if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you're looking to buy in. My personal opinion is you can wait, see what Bitcoin truly does, because again, nobody knows from here. I personally think it's still trending downwards on the daily. And even on the 4-hour, it's not showing usually positive signs. Definitely in the short term, it has been very positive over the last number of days, helped by a 0.5 percentage interest rate cut. But for me, if there was real energy in Bitcoin and if there was real belief and people were very positive or very sure or didn't have a lot of uncertainty, and there's certainly loads of uncertainty out there regarding regulation, regarding the US elections, regarding tensions in so many places in the world. I think most people are unsure and are reluctant to place their bets yet on the likes of Bitcoin. And until that reaches a solid positioning, then I don't think there's any hurry to be getting into the other cryptocurrencies. Of course, you'll miss some of the upside, but it's a very minor part of the upside in the overall scheme of things. If Bitcoin goes to 90, 100 grand by the end of this year and beyond, then all coins will do huge multiples. Good ones will do huge multiples. And so, will you have any concern if you've missed a 10% rise, 15%, 20% rise in one of your altcoins, if it eventually is going to do a 20, 30, 40x? For me, no, is the answer. Because what I would prefer to find out is for Bitcoin to confirm a trend of which direction it's going to go. Because again, I still think there's a lot to suggest with the macroeconomics that are out there that there's still a very big flush out to happen. If that were to happen, those other cryptocurrencies will drop by 40 and 50%. And that gives you massive upside. There's already upside with the good ones, but it gives you massive upside. And you could buy into some really, really good crypto projects that have suddenly become good value and certainly better value than they are right now. So for me, my attitude to it all right now is to, of course, watch the market, watch the news, keep on top of what's happening, research other projects that I like to get into if this pullback were to happen. But of course, if Bitcoin makes up its mind and starts heading off in a bull run, then it certainly could be time to get into whatever projects you might be holding off and or waiting off on. Or of course, people can take the dollar cost average route, which is usually a positive one anyway, where if you're looking at a particular cryptocurrency, it's at whatever price it's at right now, and you have the number doesn't matter. But let's say you have $1,000 that you're planning on putting into that, you could put in a little bit of it now, and then see what happens. If things move up, you've bought it at a very good price, and you can DCA upwards into it and get more into it before the real bull run kicks in. Or if it goes the other way, you'll have bought some in at a higher price, fair enough. But if it crashes or pulls back strongly, then you would be able to buy the same project for much cheaper. So give you much more upside. So you win either way, in my opinion. With that, that's me. That's a wrap. I have asked before if people would like me to go through projects. I'm talking about projects that are on exchange. So, for example, if you believe Solana is the next big chain and you believe DeFi is going to be the big thing in this bull run, well, then it would suggest you could kill two birds with one stone. And instead of buying Solana on its own, you could buy a DeFi project on Solana. And if you really want to go for it, you could look for a DeFi project on Solana that hasn't really kicked off yet, but has really good fundamentals, and you do your research on it, and it can go upwards from there. Likewise, you could have a project that's both a metaverse project and a gaming project, and maybe it's going on a good layer two, and you combine all those together, and you have a three-way bet in one investment. So, if that's something you'd like me to start looking into, I'm happy to do so. I wasn't making a call out to people to start sending me all sorts of projects that aren't anywhere yet. Though always interested to have those set my direction. But if you are sending me a project that you like or you'd like me to look into, send me something as to why you like it first. What is it that has attracted you to that project, and why is it you'd want me to look at it? Just so I can get a general overview. I have some people send me a website or something and say, "I like this. Have a look at this." And haven't given me any indication as to why they like it. So if you want me to do something like that, happy to do it, but do some little bit before you send it to me. With that, hope you all have a good weekend. And let's wait and see. When is this bull run going to kick in? I think the most important thing is, in my belief, it will kick in. The timing, that's different. We'll see.